So who wrote the Book of Enoch?
The authorship of the Book of Enoch is traditionally attributed to Enoch himself.
Han Meditations. Hey guys, as you can see, I have all these journals. The link will be in the description. Hello guys, I am Han. This is Kelly. We are Han Meditations. Hello. And we're back with another interesting video. This time we want to talk about some different books because we all know and everybody knows that is in existence essentially that the Quran is the most intact holy book. If you're reading the Quran, you're basically essentially reading the exact words of the Prophet Muhammad. It's not written by somebody else because all these other books, I mean, think about it, guys. Why aren't other books even written by the prophets in the book? It's just people writing about the, like, what are we talking about here? And yeah, I mean, so it makes sense. So, but also, I want to see, like, what are these other books that they left out of the Bible and the Torah and all these things? So let's just get right into it. Hello, ChatGPT. I have a question. Could you tell me what the Book of Enoch is?
Hey, the Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish text that's not part of the standard Bible, but holds significance in some religious traditions. It's often classified as apocryphal, meaning it's not included in most versions of the Bible, though it is considered scripture in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. The book is traditionally attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. It deals with some pretty fascinating themes, including visions of heaven, the fate of angels who fell from grace, and prophecies about the coming of a Messiah. One of its most well-known parts is the story of the Watchers, angels who descended to earth, married human women, and taught forbidden knowledge. This ultimately leads to corruption and chaos, contributing to the reasons for the Great Flood. It's an interesting text because it explores the relationship between the divine and the human world in a unique way, and it has influenced early Christian and Jewish thought. It's especially popular among people who are into esoteric or mystical interpretations of religious texts. Had you heard about it before? Or are you looking into something related to it?
Oh, I've heard about it. And what I've heard is that these are actually extraterrestrial beings that came down and were giving this knowledge to human beings and marrying human beings, because why would an angel need to marry a human being? Do you believe that these were extraterrestrial beings that could have possibly came down to this planet in the Book of Enoch?
I see where you're coming from. The idea that the Watchers in the Book of Enoch could have been extraterrestrial beings is definitely something a lot of people have speculated about. This theory is often discussed in fringe or alternative circles that explore ancient astronaut hypotheses. The thought is that these beings, described as angels, might not have been divine in the traditional sense, but instead advanced extraterrestrials who interacted with early humans, giving them knowledge and altering the course of human history. In the book, the Watchers are depicted as beings who descended from heaven, taught humans various arts, sciences, and even warfare, and had children, the Nephilim, with human women. For people who are into the ancient astronaut theory, this sounds like beings from another planet coming to Earth with advanced technology and knowledge, which could explain why they were revered as gods or divine beings. As for the marriage aspect, in a more traditional religious context, the story is interpreted symbolically or as a warning about transgression and mixing the divine with the human. But if you look at it through an extraterrestrial lens, the question could be whether these beings needed to mate with humans for genetic reasons, or even as a way of influencing human evolution. It's a fascinating idea. And while there's no definitive proof to back up the extraterrestrial interpretation, it does open up a whole new way of thinking about ancient texts and mythology. Do you lean more toward the traditional religious interpretation? Or do you think there might be something to the extraterrestrial theory?
Yes, we wanted to know. We have a couple more questions. One, who is Enoch? I want to know, who's Enoch?
Enoch is a pretty mysterious and fascinating figure in biblical tradition. He appears in the book of Genesis, specifically in the genealogies of Adam's descendants. Enoch is most well known for being one of the few people in the Bible who didn't die, but was instead taken directly by God. Genesis 5:24 says Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. This implies that Enoch had an incredibly close relationship with God, so much so that he was spared from death and brought straight to heaven. In Jewish and Christian traditions, Enoch is often seen as a symbol of righteousness and someone who lived in deep communion with God. Because of this, later texts like the Book of Enoch expand on his story. In these apocryphal writings, Enoch is portrayed not just as a holy man, but as someone who had divine knowledge. He was said to have had visions of heaven, received secret wisdom, and communicated with angels. At this point,
explain to me who Enoch was in Islam.
in Islam, Enoch is known as the prophet Idris, and he holds a respected place in Islamic tradition. While he is not as central a figure as in other religious traditions, Idris is still considered a prophet who was given special wisdom and understanding from Allah. He is mentioned twice in the Quran in Surah Maryam, 19:56-57, and Surah Al-Anbiya, 21:85. The Quran describes Idris as a man of truth and patience, someone who was raised to a high position or exalted place. This has led many Islamic scholars to believe that, similar to the biblical Enoch, Idris was taken up by Allah without experiencing death, though there's some debate about whether this means he was physically taken to heaven or simply elevated in rank. The exact details aren't heavily elaborated on in the Quran, but his righteousness and closeness to Allah are emphasized. In Islamic tradition, Idris is often associated with knowledge, wisdom, and writing.
One more question. So who wrote the Book of Enoch?
The authorship of the Book of Enoch is traditionally attributed to Enoch himself, the great-grandfather of Noah. However, most scholars agree that the book was not written by a single person, and certainly not by Enoch directly, as it was composed much later, likely between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE. The Book of Enoch is actually a collection of writings with various sections likely written by different Jewish authors over time. It was passed down through oral tradition before being compiled into its current form. The text reflects the thoughts, beliefs, and concerns of a specific group of Jews during the Second Temple period, between the rebuilding of the Temple in Jerusalem and its...
So whenever they're talking about the Book of Enoch, that's interesting because whenever they said it was written by Enoch himself, that's when they had me for a second. I'm like, okay, that sounds like the Prophet Muhammad for a second with the Quran, you know? So, but, you know, obviously they said it was written by different people and passed on over time. Yeah. So, I mean, so you were confused at first who Enoch was, but because in the Quran, he goes by Idris.
I do recall that now. Of course we did. Yes.
And if I recall correctly, Idris was known to be the first one to write and bring writing to the people. And I believe he was a warrior as well. I could be wrong, but I believe he was a warrior. We might have to relook up that video and learn more. But
it's interesting because I've heard that the Book of Enoch is associated with a certain group of Jewish people that were called the Essenes, but they have a little bit different beliefs and practices. And from what I know, their group is kind of not fully accepted, kind of pushed to the side. But there's a lot of interesting stuff about the Essenes. It said that Jesus was working with them hands-on, during his time that's taken out of the Bible growing up. So pretty interesting stuff. And we'll have to ask more questions, really, because there's just so much to know.
Kelly, we're going to learn more about Enoch. We're going to learn more about this ancient history. And we're really going to get it to the next level with this Chat GPT stuff, because there's so much stuff out there that needs to be said and known.
And Chat GPT is evolving, like asking us questions now. So
it's really crazy how it's doing that. But you know, we're all evolving together, and we're doing this for the first time together. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, watching the video, and we will definitely see you in the next one. Thank you for donating as well. We love you guys so much. See you in the next video.